shut up, you listen to my monkey mouth. There's a companion when you got pun on the canoa route. Hopped in a portal and got in a fight, Elias knocked him out. Bow, Naruto fighting style. Bow, UFC he tapped out. Bow, we win, we get crowned. Monkey mouth, monkey mouth, monkey mouth, monkey mouth.
What's up, Armchair Army? It's good to be back. Thank you for tuning in. This is going to be our UFC 287 preview, and this is going to be a really good card. I'm really excited about it. Obviously, I'm a big Israel Adesanya dork, and so anytime that he's fighting, I'm going to be gushing all over the place, right? My bussy popping, bruh, for some Israel Adesanya. Know what I'm talking about? But we're also going to take a quick look back at the fights that happened between UFC 286 and 287. So that means there's actually only one fight card, the Vera versus Sandhagen card. And we may also take a quick look forward at the fights between 287 and 289, or 288 rather. There's a whole lot of fights between 287 and 289. But just to dive straight off into this one, obviously it's headlined by Alex Pereira and Israel Adesanya. We're going to get to that in just a little bit. To start on the, prelim, I mean, it's a good night of fights whenever Cynthia Calvillo is on the early prelims, right? She's got Lupita Godinez. That's going to be a fun fight. But then in the prelims, you've got Chris Curtis and Kelvin Gastelum. That's a crazy fight. That's a really good fight to be on the preliminary card. We're in for a treat, clearly. I don't know who I'd take in this fight. I think that Kelvin Gastelum is the more dangerous fighter offensively, but I think that Chris Curtis is probably the more conservative and sounder defensive fighter. So it's going to come down to, things like intangibles, wrestling, and things like that. And I feel like Kelvin's probably the better wrestler, but Chris Curtis ain't no slouch. I don't know. It depends on the mindset of Kelvin Gastelum, right? Kelvin Gastelum's a world beater, right? He gave Israel Adesanya one of his toughest fights ever, right? And so if that version of Kelvin Gastelum shows up, it's going to be a real tough night at the office. But, we've seen Kelvin kind of come out looking flat before. Just is what it is. So, I'd probably go with Kelvin Gastelum on this one if I'm being real honest. We've got Michelle Waterson, Karate Hottie, and Lana Pinheiro, Gerald Mearshart, and Joey Pfeiffer, Carl Williams, and Chase Sherman. So these are all entertaining fights. These are all good fights. Chris Curtis and Kelvin Gastelum's obviously going to be the two biggest names on that, but Karate Hottie, Gerald Mearshart, these are guys to keep up with. Oh, Chris Barnett, Thickums was out. Damn. Okay, so Carl Williams is stepping in for Chris Barnett in the Chase Sherman fight, so we'll see how that goes. But on to the main card. We've got Raul Rosas Jr., who is that young head who came in from the Contender Series. I think they signed him to a UFC contract while he was 17 years old. Defo, the youngest guy who's ever been given a contract in the UFC. And he's fighting Christian Rodriguez, who's no slouch. He's 8-1, right? And Raul is 7-0. And Christian's also very young. So two hot up-and-comers. Someone's going to climb the ranks, and someone's going to have to go back to the drawing boards. You know how this sport go. A lot of hype behind Rosas Jr. right now, though. A lot of hype. Kevin Holland and Santiago Ponzinibbio. This is a really good fight. I'm a bigger Kevin Holland fan just because Kevin Holland's like a modern-day Superman, right? He's always out here doing like the craziest shit, stopping robberies out front of local businesses and shit, like just the wildest, weirdest shit where he's out like doing good. It's crazy. He's like a modern day kick-ass. It's dope. So big Kevin Holland fan, but Santiago Ponzinibbio is a wily veteran, right? He's definitely gonna get like at least one good eye poke in and at least one good dick kick in. He's gonna make all the right moves at the right times. It seems in that Santiago isn't quite as aggressive recently as he's been in the past, whereas Kevin Holland is like a super aggressive guy. Um, if I gotta pick it, man, I'm probably going Kevin Holland. Really, really. Um, yeah, I just think that Kevin Holland with a better ground game, and with him having a longer reach, and with him being the younger guy with like more piss and vinegar, I think Kevin Holland. But if Santiago Ponzinibbio gets him with an eye poke and then knocks him out like he did against Gunny Nelson, I wouldn't be surprised. You got Rob Font and Adrian Yanez, which is a fun fight. Anytime, honestly, both these guys are always in fun fights. So I think there's a pretty low chance that this fight particularly isn't exciting. I mean, honestly, Raul Rosas Jr., exciting fight. And then the last card on the early prelims, Kelvin Gastelum and Chris Curtis, that's going to be a good fight. I could see it getting maybe a little standing in the mirror with how defensive Chris Curtis fights, but I mean, I think that's going to be a fun fight. I think there's going to be some leather being thrown. Raul Rosas Jr. and Christian Rodriguez, a fun fight. Kevin Holland, Santiago Ponzinibbio, that's a fun fight. Rob Font, Adrian Yanez, that's a fun fight. Gilbert Burns, Jorge Masvidal, that's a fun fight. There's some things that have been being said by Jorge Masvidal that I don't necessarily like. Like I saw that he was saying that if he loses, he's going to retire as his last fight. And for me, that's a big red flag, right? That means that his heart might not quite still be in it. And he might just be trying to come and get him, a good check or two, a good check on the way out. And if he wins, ride that hype on as many good checks as he can before he rides off into the sunset. And man, historically, whenever guys get to that point and their heart isn't really in it and they're fighting for money, that's when shit starts downhill, So, man, I hope that's not what's happening with my man Jorge, because I've been a fan of Jorge's for a very long time. But there is a reason why Gilbert Burns is the biggest betting favorite on this card, right? I think he's like 4 or 5 to 1 favorite over Jorge, and that's outside of the considerations of the psychological things that I'm trying to talk about currently, right? That's just who Vegas thinks is going to win the fight when they go in there and squab. And then, you add the things that I'm talking about on top of that, man, and it's just like, it's hard for me to pick Jorge, man, and I hate picking against Jorge Masvidal. But in this one, I probably have to pick Gilbert Burns. Probably have to pick Gilbert Burns if I'm having to like put my son's college tuition on it, right? We're going with Gilbert Burns on this one. He got a big right hand, he hits like a Mack truck. He's got really, really great jiu-jitsu. He's got a head like a cinder block. I don't think that Jorge could necessarily knock him out and finish him. And so, like, Burns is more likely to finish the fight with a submission. He's more likely to finish the fight with a TKO or a knockout. Jorge is going to basically have to point fight, beat him up, and win on points, I feel like. And that's the old Jorge, right? Jorge's supposed to be baptizing people these days. So, hopefully it's a good fight for Jorge. I would prefer that Jorge wins, personally. But if I'm betting on it, it's Gilbert Burns, y'all. And then we get to the main event, which is Alex Pereira or Pereira. I don't know how you're supposed to pronounce it, man. From what I understand in Portuguese, R's make the H noise, but whenever you hear the announcers and the people in the marketing departments talking about Alex Pereira, they say Pereira, right? Not Pereira. And so I don't fucking know. Alex, the big goon ass motherfucker fighting at 185, who could probably easily fight at 205 and could probably be competitive at heavyweight. The guy is huge. I mean, there's a video of Robert Whittaker in interviews at like pressers being like, who the fuck let that guy in the door? Holy shit, that's not a 185er at all. He's fucking massive. And he is. And he's a bomber, bro. He throws big shots. I mean, he's finished our man Israel Adesanya a couple times now in both kickboxing and in mixed martial arts. And so, if we're being objective about it, Alex probably got the competitive advantage. That's why he's a slight betting favorite. I think he's minus 140 on the betting line right now. So, It's not a pick'em fight, but it is in a huge betting line favored for Alex, but he is in fact the favorite. And so, I don't know. I'm gonna go with Israel Adesanya on this one because I'm a fucking fanboy. I mean, I'm rocking My Hero Academia shirt right now. Right, I'm usually rocking Naruto or One Piece or something, and he's a big anime dork. Like, he's my people, bro. Like, I feel like me and Israel Adesanya smoke a fat joint and bro the fuck down, right? And anytime that I get that vibe from somebody, it's almost like they're from Texas, right? There are certain moments whenever I'm doing this shit where I am like beholden to certain rules that I might not necessarily be communicating out loud to y'all, and I have to pick certain ways. And this is one of those moments, right? Israel's my people. I'm picking him. And, if I gotta ride that ship as it sinks, that's what I'm gonna do. But I don't think that's what's gonna happen, man. Honestly, I mean, let's be really frank, right? Israel Adesanya knocked the piss out of Peña in their last fight. Like, Alex got saved by the bell, homie. Let's be real. There was a moment where Alex got saved by the bell. It's been a long time since they fought, and so I don't recall between which rounds, but there was a round when right as the round was ending, man, Israel was putting it on Alex. And then Alex obviously saved everything for that fifth round and just dumped his entire gas tank in the fifth round and caught Izzy. And I ain't mad at Alex. He's a great fighter, and won the fights fair and square. And so there's a reason why he's a betting favorite. But I'm rocking Izzy, dog. We could talk more about it, but that's probably plenty. Let's go ahead and talk about the fights that happened between 286 and 287. The fight night headline between Chito Vera and Corey Sandhagen. And you guys heard it here. I was wrong as hell about my pick in the main event. I thought that Chito Vera would eventually snipe old Corey Sandhagen, but Corey Sandhagen came out and wrestle fucked the shit out of Chito in the first two rounds, and I think that kind of negatively affected Chito's gas tank and his pop, right? And then also Chito was having to be so considerate of the takedowns because of how effective Corey was being once he got them, that Chito wasn't being able to fight his normal fight, right? It's very difficult to get your striking going whenever every time someone dips their head, you got to address it like it's a potential takedown. And so, I was wrong, guys. I definitely underestimated Corey Sandhagen's wrestling, and I definitely underestimated his willingness to go out there and execute a difficult game plan, right? I thought they were going to go out there and squab the whole time, stand and bang, because Corey's been in a few fights like that. And, nah, Corey went in there and put on an academic performance to get the win, and then a convincing win at that. And so, congrats to him, man. Cheeto's still great, man. Cheeto's a great fighter. We're going to see what they do with him next, but at this point, it's the Corey Sandhagen show over there. Holly Holm dominated Yana Santos, formerly Yana Kunitskaya. She actually is married to Thiago Santos, who lost his fight in PFL, I want to say. Yeah, I believe it's PFL where he's fighting. Nate Landwehr got a submission over Austin Lingo. Macy Barber got a decision over Andrea Lee. Chidi and Jukwani lost a decision to Albert Duriev. Daniel Pineda got a submission over Tucker Lentz in the second round. And with that, we can take a quick look forward. So looking forward, the next set of fights that are going to happen after 287 is a fight night headlined by Max Holloway and Arnold Allen. Ooh, that's a good fight. That's a good fight, man. Max is so good, and Arnold is so hot and on the come up right now. He's got all the momentum in the world. Edson Barboza and Billy Quarantillo, man, bro. Edson Barboza, you don't want to give him some like Billy Quarantillo, who's a madman who doesn't quit like that, man. Like, that's a tough fight for Edson. Edson been having a real tough go recently. He's such a good fighter, and he's just gatekeeping at featherweight, where I mean he's came down from 55, which I still can't believe he was able to do. But it's just, man, the top of these weight classes are fucking shark tanks, man. And if you don't break through and hold that belt, you find yourself having to gatekeep, and you start catching all the young, hot, hungry guys on the come up. It was a tough spot. I mean, ask Edson Barboza about it, man. I mean, he had to deal with Khabib. He had to deal with a lot of guys on the come up before they got the belt, right? And it's a tough job. I don't know who to pick. It depends on how effectively Billy Quarantillo is able to control range, right? If he's able to keep Edson on his back foot and stay within the kicking range, stay closer than kicking range, keep it in boxing and clinch range. Maybe do some wrestling, get Edson's gas tank kind of compromised. Then, you're probably looking at a pretty convincing Quarantillo win. But Edson Barboza can always spinning heel kick somebody into the rafters, so there's no real telling how that one's going to go. Next, there's a light heavyweight fight between Dustin Jacoby and Azamat Murzakanov. Azamat Murzakanov, undefeated. He's probably going to stay undefeated in this one. Tanner Bozer and Ion Cutelaba. I mean, that Ion Cutelaba always is a fun fight, so there's going to be a fun fight on that one. Pedro Munoz, Chris Gutierrez. Pedro Munoz always goes in and bangs. That's going to be a fun one. Chris Gutierrez also goes in and bangs. I would probably imagine Chris Gutierrez is going to win that fight, though, but I don't know. Clay Guida and Rafa Garcia. Clay Guida. How is this guy still fighting? He's so old. Maybe he's not even that old. Maybe he's just got a lot of MMA miles. I don't know. I feel like he's been here since the start, though. Like, it's been a lot of Clay Guida in my life. And good on him. He looked really, really good in his last fight. Rafa Garcia is 15-3 and is not a joke, though. He hits really hard. Good luck with that, Clay Guida. Good luck. Moving forward, we have another fight night that's headlined by Sergey Pavlovich and Curtis Blades, and this is a real interesting fight. Sergey is 17-1, Curtis is 17-3 with a no contest. Totally opposite skill sets, right? Sergey Pavlovich is like a boxing son of a bitch, gonna piece you up, whereas Curtis Blades is probably the most decorated wrestler at heavyweight. Even with John Jones up there, right, in terms of credentials, but real life effectiveness, we're gonna see. But it's gonna come down to who's able to assert their game plan, right? I don't know if Sergey hits hard enough to stop Curtis from getting his takedowns, right? The only guys who've ever stopped Curtis from getting his takedowns are Francis Ngannou and Derek Lewis. And those guys send people to Neptune. And so, it's one of those things where I don't know if Sergey kind of, hits hard, right? He hits very hard, but he's also kind of a guy who hits you 3-4 times. And he's got really crispy technique. He's really patient, very accurate. And I don't know if, 1-2, a nice, clean 1-2 that doesn't have a lot of pop on it when Curtis Blades is coming in. I don't know if that's going to be enough to stop Curtis. And once Curtis has got you, he's got you. I mean, what he did to Alistair Overeem with those elbows while in Alistair's full guard is still one of the most terrifying things I've ever seen in the octagon, right? So, once Curtis gets him where he wants him, it's going to be the Curtis Blades show. And all things considered, if it's all equal, typically you lean in the direction of the guy with the better fundamental skill set for MMA, and that's typically wrestling, right? Like, they're both fantastic, but one's a wrestler and one's a boxer. Typically, the wrestler is going to take that, a la Khabib and Conor, type of energy. So if I had to pick, I'd probably pick Curtis Blades on this one. Then you got Song Yadong and Ricky Simon. That's going to be a fun fight. Those dudes are both crazy men. Then you got Brad Tavares and Bruno Silva. That's a fun fight. Bobby Green is back. Jared Gordon. That's a fun fight. Yeah, they're gonna go out there and bang. Bobby Green is such a game fighter. I love watching Bobby Green fight. I got to see him fight live in Austin, I believe. Probably pick Bobby Green on that one, but we gonna see. Brogan Walker is fighting Luchindo. Jeremiah Wells is fighting Matthew Semmelsberger, which ought to be a fun fight. Then you got a whole nother fight card. Damn, we got one, two, three fight cards between 287 and 288. So it might be a little while between when y'all see me next. I mean, I'm going to do a review, but then there might be a little while between my 287 review and the next thing I produce. I might give y'all a little something between here and there. I don't know if y'all are good. Comment and shit. You know, make advertisers want to give me money. And yeah, I'll treat y'all better. That's not true. I'm gonna treat y'all as good as I can no matter what. Fuck advertisers and shit. I just like to be silly. But it's Armand Sarkarian and Renato Moicano, which, man, that's cool to see Renato Moicano headlining an event, right? Because I think he's got one win since he got turned into mincemeat by RDA. The fight where he got the shit beat out of him by RDA, I actually felt bad for that human being. So it's good to see him coming back and getting wins and headlining shit without having to be the guy who's stepping in on short notice for somebody. What else we got going on this card? Chal Baralho and Michael Olejczyk. Oleksyjczuk. Oleksyjczuk. Motherfucker. I don't know. Find a cat named Michael. Michal, if that's even how you say that. Michael. 18-5-0 with a no contest. And I'm a big, obviously, I don't know a lot about Mr. Michael, but I am plenty familiar with Chow, and he always looks. I mean, he's 13-1 with a no contest. He always looks great. He's like it's like if you shrunk Paulo Costa by 20%, which is funny because Chow fights at middleweight, and so does Paulo Costa. They look like totally different breeds of human, yet they fight in the same weight class. But yeah, so like if you took Paulo Costa and shrunk him by 20%, you get Chow, and he's a fun guy, fun on the mic, fun on the octagon, fun fighter, big fan. Rodolfo Vieira and Cody Buttigieg, Emily Ducote and Pollyanna Viana, Marcos Rogero de Lima and Waldo Cortez Acosta. Those are two really long names. Josh Quinlan and Ange Lusa. Martin Boudet and Jake Collier, Julian Arosa and Fernando Padilla, Nathan Levy and Pete Rodriguez. We got a couple of this is odd that it's like the main card just goes forever. Yeah, this one I don't think they've decided who's on the main card and who's on the prelims. It's just one long card. But that takes us all the way to UFC 288, which is going to be headlined by Aljamain Sterling and Henry Cejudo, which ought to be a fun fight. It'll be interesting to see how Henry Cejudo looks coming back. You know, there's going to be ring rust. Obviously, he's been training and coaching this whole time, so it's not like he hasn't been staying fit and active and, you know, keeping his mind on the sport. So we'll see. But it's hard to bet against Aljamain Sterling. Man, he's looked really, really good. I bet against him, and he made me look bad. And so, then again, I picked against Henry Cejudo whenever he beat fucking Demetrius Mighty Mouse. So it's like neither of these guys are safe to bet against. But with Aljamain being the current champion and Henry Cejudo coming off, quote unquote, the couch, I gotta probably pick Aljamain on that one. Then it's this fight card is co-mained by Charles Oliveira and Beneil Dariush, which is a great fight. Like, holy cow, what a great fight. I want Beneil Dariush to win because I want him to get a shot because he's been fighting so good recently, man. But then it's Charles Oliveira, and that's my guy. So I don't know. Flip a coin, homie. I mean, if I really think Charles Oliveira will win. I just want Beneil to get his shot. You know, he's like a sweet guy, like a real, like, God-honest sweet guy. I could go without all the religious talk, but, like, he's like that because he's a sweet guy. So whatever. And you got Jessica Andrade and Yan Xiaonan, which that's a fun fight. I gotta probably take Jessica on that one. And Bryce Mitchell and Jonathan Pierce. I thought Bryce retired. I thought this fool was fucking done. And this is why I wish they wouldn't interview guys immediately after losses, because you're emotional and you say shit that you don't necessarily mean, right? Clearly, Bryce didn't necessarily mean that he wasn't going to fight anymore, because here he is fighting on the next numbered card. So, it's just, it's such a tough spot for those fighters, man, because to be put in a position where you have to give interviews and you have to maintain a professional demeanor and shit after just having effectively gotten your ass beat. So, nothing. I don't want to take anything away. I'm actually a big Bryce Mitchell fan. He got them camo shorts, so I hope he gets him a win. I hope he gets moving in the right direction. Kron Gracie is fighting Charles Jourdain, and anything happening on? Ooh, Kennedy and Njoku and Devin Clark are fighting on the preliminary card. Neat, but cool. That's about as far as I'm gonna take that. Let's see. I could probably talk about something that's happening on the news. Oh, so Jorge, Game Bread Promotions. Shout out Jorge Masvidal doing his own fight promotion. Has a card coming up that's headlined by a boxing match between Showtime Pettis and Roy Jones Jr. And if that isn't some quality circus fight shit, I don't know what is, right? I will tune in for that. I'm gonna tune in. I'm definitely tuning in. Crazy to think that Roy Jones Jr. was like already fighting whenever UFC 1 happened, and here he is, like, still headlining promotions in 2023. It's fucking crazy. Man, what a legend is all you can even say. What else is going on out here in the world of mixed martial arts? I have too many things open on my phone. Here we go. Oh yeah, so we got a Yoel Romero. So Yoel Romero is going to be fighting Vadim Nemkov, and Sergio Pettis is going to be fighting Patricio Pitbull at Bellator 297 in Chicago. So that's fun. It's crazy. I mean, Yoel Romero is still just like an absolute freak, right? The physique of that human being is just, I don't know, in a different category. Yeah. He's done some shit to look like that for sure. Then we got Josh Emmett versus Iota Puria in a 5-round headliner. Ooh wee. Yeah, man. I feel like that's definitely a title eliminator, right? Like whoever wins that is moving on up for sure. Good on Tapuria. He hasn't been in the game. He hasn't been in the UFC that long. He's making big waves fast. Wow, good on him. Real good on him. Okay, so we've got the PFL Senior Vice President of Corporate Communications is saying that Jake Paul is absolutely going to fight in 2023. That's mixed martial arts, and that's NPFL, presumably. So that'd be really interesting to see Jake Paul do MMA. I don't know if it's a move that I necessarily co-sign on, because, man, MMA is like a little bit different game than boxing. But also, I feel like it's crazy these guys are trying to go and do like big boy boxing. Like, bro, there's literally a YouTubers boxing league where these YouTubers are getting together and beating the shit out of one another. Go run that shit. Go fight it. Go fight Sergio Pettis of the world. Go fight the old heads. Don't try and fight, Tommy Fury's of the world, man. Like losing a decision to Tommy Fury was bad for Jake Paul's whole little thing, I feel like. But hey, man, he's made way more money and has a way bigger following than me, so clearly he knows what he's doing, right? But in my world, I'd be going for fun circus fights, not trying to be like a real boxer, because these guys been doing it since they were fucking kids. You were making videos when you were a kid, and you're literally a few steps behind, unfortunately. Let's see. Oh, Dustin Poirier is going to be debuting as a desk analyst at UFC 287, which is cool. I'm a big fan of Dustin Poirier, and he's got a little, Southern Louisiana twang, so that's going to make things nice. I'm gonna be a big fan of that. Bilal Muhammad is saying that he's only interested in fighting people up above him, which basically limits him to Kamaru Usman, Colby Covington, and Leon Edwards. So, and obviously they're saying that Colby and Edwards is lined up, right? So I guess it's going to be Kamaru versus Bilal for the winner of Colby versus Leon, or something like that. right? What else is going on? Oh shit. Okay, Endeavor, WME, the dudes who own the UFC, they just bought the WWE as well. And the plans are to merge the WWE and the UFC into one publicly traded company. And just wow. This interesting stats. The UFC was actually valued at like 12 billion, and the WWE was valued at like 9 billion. So the UFC is literally like 33% more valuable than WWE, and the UFC basically just ripped off the shtick of the WWE, the way the show runs, the way like everything that happens on the back end, the way they're putting the production together, and the way it all runs. That's straight up the WWE shtick. And so it's like they've came in like big brother the WWE, which I think is really really dope. But I don't know if I necessarily like this, right? Like, I guess I'm an old schooler at this point. I like it to feel like a sport. You know what I'm saying? I want it to be like the number one and the number two guy in the world, but not who cut a better promo at WrestleMania. You know what I'm saying? That's it. That's not what we're trying to do, man. Like it's at the end of the day, the UFC is an entertainment business, right? But that's in quite the same way as the NFL is an entertainment business, right? It's like all sports are entertainment, right? And so I think that there needs to be like a slightly tighter leash around how they're doing things at the UFC as compared to the WWE. And I just see I just see the UFC sliding off into the direction of being more WWE like, right? Like it's going to be really difficult for them not to be influenced by them when they're literally under the same corporate umbrella. I feel like maybe I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong, because I like UFC. I want it to be fights. They could honestly never do promos. I could give a fuck less about like what these dudes are saying on the microphones. Like it's cool. At the end of the day, it's cool, and it does add something, and it does allow for you to invest in the characters that these human beings actually are. But at the end of the day, right, people aren't tuning in to watch the Dallas Cowboys because of the drama that transpired in the locker room the day before. You know what I'm saying? But that is what people are tuning in to the WWE for, right? And so, I don't know. I think it kind of conflates a couple of lines. It kind of blurs a couple lines that I don't think necessarily need to be blurred, and I can see how it could be a slippery slope and how it could definitely jeopardize the UFC as a sport by them overcommitting to it as an entertainment company, right? But again, it's not my thing. I'm just here to talk shit, right? Not only am I an armchair mixed martial artist, I'm also an armchair executive. So, Dana, if you're listening, like, think about this shit, homie. That's it, man. I think that's everything I got to talk about today. I mean, there's literally headlines for days, and the implications of these fights could go on for forever. I could literally sit here and talk about this shit forever. But all the things that I had decided previously that I was going to talk about, I've now talked about. I feel as though the goal of previewing UFC 287 has been accomplished. We had a quick look at the fights before. We have a quick look at the fights leading up to 287, and we had a quick look at the fights between 287 and 288. We went over some general MMA news, and I mean, that's check, homie. Let's get out of here. Armchair Army, this is Joshua. I appreciate you all as always. We'll catch you on the next one. Peace.
Monkey mouth, monkey mouth, monkey mouth, monkey mouth.